Hello, friends. How are you all doing today? Welcome to the Savage Gentleman. For those of you that have been joining for the last couple of weeks, welcome back to the Savage Gentleman. We have been diving into over the last 10 weeks what it means to live out biblical masculinity in today's world. It has been an awesome and amazing journey, and I pray that you have been blessed by it, that it has challenged you. You have responded to the challenges that we've issued each week, and you are beginning to see what it is, what it means to live out biblical masculinity in today's world. There are so many things that go into that, and we've talked about all 10 of those. And those 10 practical ways, it's not an exhaustive list, but it's something to get us started. If you have not had the opportunity to listen to all 10, go back and listen to all 10. I'm certain it's going to challenge you, and you will be able to answer the clarion call that is being made for us as men of God to step up and be the men that God has called us to be. I'm your host, Pastor Benjamin Wilson, and today, as we are moving towards the next phase of what we're going to be doing with the podcast, I am excited. And today, what I'm going to talk about, what I'm going to present, is something that is hold dear to my heart, something that is special, and I want to take some time to talk about this. We're going to talk about how crucial it is to underscore the importance of our presence as men of God in our homes, our churches, and our communities. Men, there is a very desperate need today for men who not only profess faith, but actively engage in their roles as leaders, protectors, and nurturers. Our families, churches, and our neighborhoods, they yearn for men who embody the strength and gentleness of the gentleness of Christ. Men who stand firm in our convictions while being tender in our actions. Men who understand that their influence extends far beyond personal success. It's about legacy, discipleship, and fulfilling God's kingdom mission. As we acknowledge the profound need for men to actively engage in divinely appointed roles, it becomes absolutely essential for us to look to scripture for inspiration and guidance. The Bible is replete with stories of men who did not just exist in the shadows as beacons of faith, courage, and commitment. These men, through their actions and decisions, left indelible marks on their families, their followers, their church, their communities, and we are being asked to do the same. So it makes sense that we should explore some of these biblical figures and draw from their lives the lessons that can illuminate our path today. These models we're going to talk about today are our models of engagement, and they are not just historical figures to admire, but they are mentors in the faith whose examples can teach us how to present and impact lives and be impactful in every area of our lives. The first gentleman we're going to look at these, and I purposely look to see if there are three men that we often overlook, because a lot of times we can look at David, a lot of times we can look at Paul, we can look at the disciples, we can look at Moses, Abraham, and Noah, those who stood up and stepped up in the moment that they were needed in their culture. And these are the names that we are familiar with. So I purposely wanted to seek out those men who are very little known. We will be familiar with some of these names, but these are men that are not often talked about. And I figured it. My heart is that it is important for us to look at men like this, because a lot of times the things that we do is not going to be in the forefront. We're not going to be looked at as David or Joshua, or our name might not be big and well known for years to come, but our impact is still powerful, and it's still needed in the culture that we're living in today. The first gentleman we're going to look at is the keeper of the ark, Obed-Edom. Obed-Edom is a figure mentioned briefly but significantly in the context of King David's reign. When the Ark of the Covenant was being moved to Jerusalem, it temporarily stayed at the house of Obed-Edom after the death of Uzzah, who touched the Ark improperly. The scriptures note that Obed-Edom's household was blessed during the 3 months that the ark resided with him and his family. I encourage you to look this up in 2 Samuel 6, 10 through 12, as well as 1 Corinthians 13, 13 through 14. Short verses, short passages, but the story is impactful. Obed-Edom's willingness to host the ark, despite the potential risk, shows profound respect and devotion to God's sanctity. His engagement with his family in this act of faith brought blessings upon his household, illustrating the positive impact of embracing spiritual responsibilities at home. His story teaches modern men, it teaches us the importance of creating a home environment that honors God, showing that spiritual leadership within the family can lead to blessings within the community. The second person I want to look at is a man that does get visited fairly often. He is an advisor to Moses. This is none other than Moses' father-in-law, Jethro. Jethro plays a very crucial role in the early part of Moses' leadership, his leadership over Israel. After Moses led the Israelites out of Egypt, Jethro visited him and observed Moses' exhaustive efforts in judging the people's disputes from morning to evening, every single day, morning to evening, morning to evening. The routine was wearing down on Moses. Jethro, recognizing this, advised Moses to delegate responsibilities to capable men who could handle smaller disputes, reserving the most significant cases for Moses. This advice significantly improved the governance of the Israelites. Jethro's engagement with Moses provides a stellar example of mentorship and community involvement. His advice to Moses on leadership and delegation not only aided Moses personally, but also enhanced the judicial process within the Israelite community, contributing to its overall stability and governance. His story encourages us today to offer wise counsel and support to leaders within our community, highlighting the value of experience and mentorship in enhancing the life of the community. The last man we're going to talk about today, that we're going to highlight today, or just talk in brief, is a man by the name of Bezalel. He was an artisan of the temple of the tabernacle of God. You see, Bezalel was chosen by God to lead the construction of the tabernacle and to craft the sacred objects contained within the tabernacle. These things are detailed. I want you to look at this in Exodus 31 through 1 through 5. It is awesome to look at this story. He was filled with the Spirit of God. Bezalel was filled with the Spirit of God, with ability, intelligence, and knowledge in all kinds of craftsmanship that's straight from the scripture. His divine appointment shows his crucial role in the creation of Israel's central place of worship. His story underscores the significance of using our God-given talents and skills to service the community, to be used to serve the church. His work not only served as a functional purpose, but also enhanced the spiritual lives of the Israelites, providing a beautiful and worthy space for worship. This narrative teaches us that our professional and creative abilities can and should be used to serve God's purposes, contributing to the spiritual and communal life of our faith communities. Each of these men, though less celebrated than figures like David, Paul, Moses himself, they all offer powerful lessons on the impact of godly responsibility in family, church, and community not sessions. I'm sorry. Obed-Edom, Jethro, and even Bezalel. As we reflect on their examples, I encourage you, look at their stories. I challenge you, men of God, my brothers, my savage gentlemen, to not only show up, but to step up. Reflect on how you can be more present in your family, actively engage in your church, and make a positive impact in your community. I encourage you to reach out to other men who share this vision, men who are not content with the status quo, but are eager to join a movement of transformation. As we prepare to launch into our next series, our next season, we are going to be focused on becoming the men God needs in the current culture. I invite you to join the Savage Gentleman week after week. Listen to the podcast, share the podcast, encourage men to jump on. I even encourage you to gather some men together after you listen and dive into what we're going to be talking about. Let's come together and to support, challenge, and grow with one another. Let's be the change we wish to see in our homes, workplaces, communities, and churches. Together, we can embody the strength and gentleness of biblical manhood, standing as pillars in our spheres of influence. Brothers, thank you for being a part of this journey for the first season so far. And I'm looking forward to what we are getting ready to embark on. We are going to dive into a level of mentorship, discipleship, and growing together as men as we dive into the scriptures, becoming the men that God has for us, especially men that are needed in the culture today. Again, I encourage you, call your brothers, call your friends, call your co-workers, bring them together, dive into what we're talking about here on the podcast, encourage them to listen, and then don't just leave it at listening. Gather together and discuss what it is that God is speaking to you. We are going to see the lives of our communities transformed because we are answering the call to be the men God has called us to be. As we move forward, remember that each of us has a critical role to play. Our families, churches, and communities are counting on us to be the men God has called us to be. Through the next time, be savage, be gentle, be extraordinary.